A parking garage receipt is what ended my marriage. Not a text message, not lipstick on a collar, not some big dramatic moment where I caught her in the act. A crumpled up receipt from a parking garage attached to a hotel that fell out of her coat pocket when I was hanging it up in the closet for her. Time stamped for 11:18 p.m. on a night. She told me she was at her mother's house helping her organize the guest bedroom. That receipt cost her the marriage, the alimony she was counting on, and about 60% of our marital assets, because her own attorney looked at what I put together over the next 6 weeks and told her she had no chance in front of a judge. Her lawyer told her to settle, and that's exactly what she did. I'm 41 and I work as a fleet maintenance supervisor for a distribution company outside of the metro area in Georgia. I pull in about $67,000 a year. It's steady work with solid benefits, but nobody's getting rich off it. My wife is 39 and she was a regional sales director for a commercial staffing agency. Her base was around $95,000, and with commissions, she was clearing about $148,000 the year before I filed, more than double what I made. We met at a charity event about 9 years ago. She came with somebody I didn't know, and we ended up talking by the cooler for about 2 hours while everybody else was talking inside. Got married a little over a year later, and things were good for a long time. We bought a house together about 3 years into the marriage, split the down payment, both names on the mortgage, both contributing to the bills every month. She made more than me, and I never had a problem with that because it wasn't a competition. It was a partnership, or at least I thought it was. Things started changing about a year and a half before I found that receipt. Her work hours got longer. She was leaving the house by 6 in the morning, and some nights she wasn't walking through the door until 9 or 10. She said the company was expanding into new markets, and she had to be on the road more to meet with clients and close deals in territories she hadn't covered before. I didn't question it because her job had always been demanding, and I didn't have any reason not to believe her. She had been grinding at that company for 7 years, and she was good at what she did, so the idea that they were giving her more responsibility made sense. But then came the small stuff that I tried to explain away. She started keeping a gym bag in her car, said she was hitting a spin class near the office on her lunch break. She changed the password on her devices. When I asked about it, she said her company required a security update, and I believed her because why wouldn't I? But I thought it was BS. But okay. One night I reached over in bed to put my arm around her and she flinched. Not a big dramatic thing, more like her body wasn't expecting me to touch her, like she forgot who was lying next to her for a second. Our weekends changed too. She used to want to do things together, go out to eat, drive somewhere for the day, even just sit on the porch and talk. But toward the end she was always tired, always had something to catch up on for work, always had a reason why this weekend wasn't a good one. I noticed it, but I talked myself out of it every time because I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who can't trust his wife. Then one afternoon I got home before she did, and she had left her coat draped over the back of a chair. I picked it up to hang it in the closet, and a receipt fell out of the pocket onto the floor. Parking garage attached to a hotel. Time stamped 11:18 p.m. That was the same night she told me she was at her mother's house and might stay over because it was getting late. Her mother lives 40 minutes north of us. That hotel is 30 minutes south in the opposite direction. I stood in that closet holding a coat hanger in one hand and that receipt in the other, and my whole chest went tight. I read it twice to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing, and then I read it a third time because part of me was hoping I had the date wrong or the location mixed up. I didn't have anything wrong. The date matched, the timestamp matched, and the address was a hotel in the opposite direction from where she told me she was going to be. I didn't say anything to her when she got home that evening. I sat at dinner across from her and listened to her talk, about her day like nothing in the world was off, and I realized I was looking at someone I didn't know anymore. After she went to bed, I folded that receipt and put it in my wallet. I didn't hire a private investigator. I didn't need one because my wife was careless and she didn't know I was paying attention. The first thing I did was sit down at my computer on a night she was supposedly visiting a client in another city and pull up our joint credit card statements going back 6 months. It took me about 3 hours to go through everything, and by the end of those 3 hours, I had a list that made my stomach turn. There were a multitude of charges that didn't match my spending habits, a bunch of places you grab lunch at, the kind of places where the bill runs $150 for 2 people and the menu doesn't have prices on it. Charges at 2 different hotels on nights she told me she was either working late or staying at her mother's house. But the thing that really sealed it was the Venmo account. We linked our Venmo accounts years ago when we first moved in together so we could split household stuff easily. Groceries, the lawn guy, the water bill, things like that. It was one of those things you set up once and forget about. And apparently she forgot about it, because she never thought to unlink her account from mine. I could see every transaction she made. There were payments going out to someone, 50 here, 70 there, once 120 with a note that just said a heart emoji. I looked the name up and it was connected to a profile with no photo and no last name, just a first name and an initial, which told me whoever it was. Didn't want to be found easily. I sat there scrolling through months of transactions with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt, watching our money flow out to this person, while she came home every night and acted like nothing was wrong. Over 5 months, she sent this person just under $2,000 through an app that I had full visibility on, because she never thought to unlink it. I screenshot every transaction, every credit card charge, every restaurant and hotel, and saved them all to a folder on a thumb drive. Then I cross-referenced the dates with every time she told me she was somewhere else. Out of 19 charges I flagged, 17 lined up with the night she lied about where she was. 17 out of 19. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern, and it had been going on for at least 8 months based on the statements I could access. I took a personal day from work and went to see a divorce attorney in the next county over because I didn't want to risk running into anybody we knew. I put the folder on his desk and let him go through it. He spent about 20 minutes reading everything, looking at the screenshots, cross-referencing the dates I had laid out on a spreadsheet I made at work during my lunch break. Then he told me there was one specific statute in Georgia that was about to change everything about how this divorce was going to play out. Not just who gets what, but who pays who and for how long. He explained that Georgia is an equitable distribution state, but it also recognizes fault-based divorce with 13 separate grounds, and adultery is one of them. He said most people file no fault because it's simpler and cheaper, but with the evidence I had, filing on fault grounds would give us a significant advantage in the courtroom. I asked him if what I had was enough to prove adultery, because I didn't have photos of them together or text messages or anything like that. He said in Georgia, you don't need a photo of the act itself. You need to prove 2 things, opportunity and inclination. Opportunity means she had the chance to commit adultery. Hotel receipts on nights she lied about her location prove that. Inclination means there was a romantic or sexual interest. Venmo payments with heart emojis to a person she never mentioned to me prove that. He said when you combine opportunity and inclination with the documented pattern of deception over 8 months, most judges are going to connect those dots without needing a surveillance photo. But here's the part that mattered most. Under Georgia law, if a spouse's adultery caused the separation, that spouse is barred from receiving alimony, not reduced, not adjusted, not negotiated down to a lower amount, Not a damn penny. Then he explained the other side of that coin. Because I was the lower earner, I had a legitimate claim to spousal support from her, and with the adultery evidence on the table, she had no legal ground to fight it. He said that combination, her being disqualified from alimony while I had a strong claim to receive it, that was going to be the hammer that controlled this entire divorce. He said that statute has been upheld by Georgia courts for decades, and with the documentation I put together, there was no realistic argument her attorney could make to get around it. He said, with the financial documentation I had, showing marital funds being spent on the affair, the court could also award me a disproportionate share of the marital estate because she dissipated our assets. I asked him what that meant in plain English. He said it meant she spent our money on another man, and the judge could make her pay for that by giving me more than 50% of everything we built together. I signed the retainer that afternoon and told him I wanted to file as soon as everything was in order. He said 2 weeks was realistic, and I told him that was fine because I had waited 6 weeks already and 2 more wasn't going to break me. We filed on a morning I was at work running fleet inspections like it was any other day. I didn't tell anybody at my job what was going on because it wasn't their business, and I didn't want the sympathy or the questions. My attorney arranged for a process server to deliver the papers to the house because I knew she worked from home sometimes, and I wanted her to be alone when she found out, so she couldn't put on a performance for an audience. I got a text from my attorney around 2:30 p.m. that said, "Service completed." My phone started blowing up about 10 minutes later. 6 missed calls before I picked up. When I answered, she wasn't screaming. Her voice was surprisingly calm, almost mechanical, like she had already figured out what the papers meant before she dialed my number. She asked me one question because she was curious. "How long have you known?" I told her 6 weeks. She asked how I found out. I told her a parking garage receipt fell out of her coat on a night she said she was at her mother's house, and that the hotel on that receipt was 30 minutes in the opposite direction. She was quiet for a few seconds. I could hear her breathing change like she was replaying every lie in her head, trying to figure out which ones I had caught. Then she said something that surprised me. She asked, "You went through the Venmo, didn't you?" She had suspected I might find it. She just didn't know when, and she didn't unlink it because doing so would have confirmed what I already suspected. She was stuck, and she knew it. I told her she should call an attorney and hung up. She hired her own attorney shortly after. My attorney filed for spousal support on my behalf. I was the lower earner, and under Georgia law, I had a legitimate claim to alimony from her to maintain the marital standard of living. Her attorney came in swinging, argued that the marriage wasn't long enough to justify ongoing support, that I was capable of earning more than I was making, that I didn't need her money to survive. My attorney responded by submitting the full evidence package to the court, every credit card statement, every Venmo screenshot, every hotel charge cross-referenced with the dates she lied about her whereabouts. He told the judge that not only was my client entitled to spousal support as the lower earner, but that under Georgia law, her adultery disqualified her from receiving any alimony if she tried to counterclaim, and the court should consider her conduct when dividing the marital estate. Her attorney's motion to limit support was denied. After that hearing, her attorney asked for a meeting, not in court, in a conference room at my attorney's office. My attorney told me afterward what happened in that room. Her attorney had reviewed the full evidence package and told my wife in front of both lawyers that if this went to trial, the judge was almost certainly going to order her to pay me spousal support as the lower earner, and the adultery evidence meant she had no way to fight it. On top of that, the financial records showing she spent marital funds on the affair meant the judge could award me more than 50% of the marital estate. Her own lawyer told her to take whatever settlement was on the table because going to trial would cost her more in legal fees than she would ever recover, and the evidence was strong enough that a judge would likely order her to write me a check every month for years. My attorney said she sat there staring at the table while her lawyer explained this to her, and by the time he was done talking, she was crying. That's the moment she realized it was over. Not the divorce papers, not the phone call, but the moment her own attorney looked at her and told her she had already lost. We settled out of court 3 months later. Her attorney pushed for mediation because he knew a trial was going to be worse for his client, and my attorney agreed because a settlement meant less money spent on legal fees for both of us. My attorney told me I could probably get monthly spousal support from her for several years if we went to trial, given the income gap and the adultery evidence, but I told him I didn't want that. I didn't want a check from her showing up every month reminding me of what she did. I wanted a clean break, one payment, walk away, done. So instead of pursuing ongoing alimony, we negotiated a larger share of the marital estate. The house sold for $340,000. After the mortgage was paid off, there was about $120,000 in equity. Under the equitable distribution, the judge approved a 60-40 split in my favor, based on the dissipation of marital assets she caused by spending our money on the affair, plus the fact that I voluntarily waived my right to ongoing spousal support. That meant I walked away with $72,000 and she got $48,000. No monthly alimony. That was my choice, not hers, and she knew it. I could have had her paying me every month for years. The statute and the evidence gave me that power, and her attorney knew it from the moment he opened that folder. She was also ordered to reimburse half of every marital dollar she spent on the affair that I could document. The hotels, the restaurants, the Venmo payments, all of it. That came out to just under $9,000. The woman who made more than double my salary walked out of that process owing me money. I found out later through a coworker of hers who I stayed in touch with that the man she was seeing was someone from a client company she had placed workers with. He wasn't married, which I guess is the one part of this that wasn't a complete disaster for everybody involved. From what I was told, the relationship didn't last long after the divorce. Once the hotels and the dinners turned into legal bills and court dates, the whole thing apparently lost its appeal. She ended up transferring to a different office about 4 months after we settled, because too many people in her building knew what happened. The part that stays with me isn't the betrayal itself. It's how normal everything looked from the outside while it was happening. We went to a cookout at my cousin's place 2 months before I found that receipt. I know that because the Venmo payment she sent him the next morning was timestamped 7:14 a.m. She was lying next to me when she sent it. That's the part people don't understand about being cheated on. It's not one big moment of pain. It's finding out that 100 small moments you thought were real were actually performances. Her mother called me a few weeks after the settlement, tried to guilt me into at least having a conversation with her daughter. I told her mother that I respected her and that this had nothing to do with their family, but her daughter made choices, and those choices had consequences, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. She didn't call again after that. I'm in a smaller place now, closer to work, and my life is quieter than it used to be. I don't miss the house. I miss what I thought the house represented, but that turned out to be something that only existed in my head while she was building something else behind my back. I started dating again about 6 months ago, and I'm taking it slow because I'm in no rush to make the same mistake twice. If you're listening to this and something doesn't feel right in your situation, check your bank statements before you check her phone. People delete texts. They don't delete charges. And talk to an attorney before you talk to your spouse, because the law is going to work a lot better for you if you have a plan before the other side knows there's a fight coming. In Georgia, that one statute gave me the power to have her paying me for years. I chose not to use it, but having it is what made her lawyer tell her to settle. Her lawyer saw the evidence and told her to settle. Best advice she got during the whole process. She just should have gotten it before she threw everything away. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.